Okay, y'all, it is time for the second installment, part 2 of the head to tutorial. Oh my gosh, of Eivor, my newest cosplay. And since it is frigid outside and rainy here in the Pacific Northwest, you get to see me in one of my wonderful closet cosplay jackets. Gotta be warm and nerd at the same time, right? Any opportunity to nerd. As I mentioned in the last tutorial, I'm going to go over how I created the tunic for Eivor today. And we're just going to go through that step by step. And first, I needed something to create a template from. And instead of buying a pattern, use what you've got. And basically what we did is we found a shirt that was nearly long enough and fit our body wide enough that we could use as the template to make the patterns. And in this case, it is just a work shirt, a button-up, short sleeve work shirt. And this is what was used to create the pattern. And I didn't have to cut the shirt up or anything, so you can use the shirt you have, and then they can go back hanging back up. And in this case, the way I created the pattern is I have what's called roll-ins. And I've got it from a newspaper place when I lived in Central Oregon, but basically it's what they print the newspaper on, and it's, what at the end, what they can't print on, which is still a significant amount. You can either get them pretty cheap or for free, and that's what I did, but it's pretty much like butcher paper. And so I laid it out on my desk here to do that. And then to start with, I wanted to do both the front and the back, but I wanted to do it in parts. And so, laid it out this way. I fold the sleeves in because I'm going to do the sleeves separately. And oh my gosh, sleeves. I hate doing sleeves. Either way, lay it out. Pin it down or just hold it down. Roughly draw the pattern that you need. Do that with both the front and the back. And then I also did it with the sleeves as well. Laid them out and just drew. So I drew the edges of the sleeve, folded it up, got the edges, and it can be rough because you're sewing it anyways, and so you can kind of fix it as you're sewing. And then what we came up with is our patterns. Ta-da! So here's the sleeve. I actually did the whole sleeve in one pattern, if I could find the right thing. And then I wrote on it, okay, this is the shirt side, this is the top, this is the arm part, and this is the bottom, so that it goes on this way or it goes on this way when you're putting it on. But again, it's the sleeve. I just did one part, flipped it over, did the other part. And then for the tunic itself, that's my roll end, and you can see that it wasn't wide enough, so I had to tape it together. You'll see the blue tape. I use a lot of that painter's tape for this type of stuff. So in case I do have to untape things, then it's not sticking together. Anyway, so for you sewers, I'm sure this is just old hat and you know what you're doing. But for me, every little step is a very significant step for me since I'm still learning my sewing. And my cosplay offspring, Ryan Starr cosplays, she's going to be teaching me more. So I'm pretty excited. So using the templates, I laid it out on my material. Now the material, this is the main tunic, and this is the detail at the bottom, the hems that I will show you. And color matching is a B, let me tell you. It was insane. But I found a Joann Superstore. Did y'all know that existed? I mean, maybe the sewers knew that. I just didn't. That had it. Found it online. Called them. Said, hey, hold this. Drove 45 minutes and bought it. It was not the cheapest thing. So cutting into it the first time is always scary. Scarier than EVA, because EVA is cheaper than whatever I paid per yard for this stuff. But we got it. We've matched this first and found this. This was the important part. And I thought, okay, I'll find the hem stuff later. Well, I had to go back to the same superstore for something else, and I was looking around, and I'm like, holy cannoli, this is the matching color for the hems. I'm like, scored. So we bought that as well. Pretty proud of myself for the 2 tunics, this is all I have left over of the hem stuff. The other stuff, I always buy extra when it's a bigger project in case I do mess up. Either way, using those patterns, I laid my material out, drew it out on there, and then cutting, as we all know, fabric scissors, and then they get hidden somewhere where nobody but you knows where they are. And then also, something that I also started using is this roller cutter. I'd seen them. I'd never used one. I saw it at Walmart. It was like an impulse buy, and I'm like, oh, look, I'm in the craft area. Let's try that out. I am so glad I did. Because this Rolly Fiskars, like the scissors for school, roll cutter it's awesome, y'all. So I cut out my stuff. After the first cut, you get a little more comfortable and you're like, okay, I got this. So I give myself a, pretty good hem because I'm sewing it together. And basically the front and the back are pretty much the same. So when I created this pattern, I only did one side. I started out doing the front and back, but since itself, the tunic is pretty much the same front and back, I just did one pattern, and then I just did it twice for the front and the back. And then that's when the machine came out. I don't have a fancy machine. I have I think it's a $60 Brother sewing machine that I, nabbed at Walmart. And it had really, really good reviews. They have them on Amazon and stuff too, but I just was able to price match on Walmart. So, hey, if you can go cheaper, go cheaper. And it's done wonders for me in the last 4 years that I've been doing the cosplay. It doesn't do anything super special, but it gets the job done. And then, as all you sewers know, we've got to, I sewed it together, the sides, the neck, all that stuff, and got it put together. Now, a lot of people use like the stick pins when they're sewing, and honestly, when I started out, that's what I used, and I still have them if I need them. Actually, I use them more on EVA foam than I actually do on my cloth sewing projects. But I was watching a cosplayer at some point, and they were doing some sewing, and they had these fabulous little, almost like alligator clips. And I know these are not like brand new to some people, but to me, they were just the most awesome thing to find. And any tool that makes my job easier or less likely to harm myself, I'm in for. And so the tunic got put together. I mean, it's sewing, so I mean, I don't know, how much I can go on about that, but basically sewing. And then after some try-ons, I realized that the neck was still needed a little bit more, so I ended up cutting a little more on the neck. So I always give myself a little extra. And then when I did the seam, actually, the hem, I folded it down so that it actually gave me more neck as well. So what I find impressive myself, besides the fact that I got it put together, I got the sleeves put on, y'all. And I think I only had to remove one once because it was put on backwards, I think, or upside down or something. Either way, we're going to talk about that. Lots of tears. Swear words. More than usual. Got the sleeves put on. Then, using the blue, the light blue, I got the hems put on. And I just, basing it off of pictures, got a rough estimate of what I thought the size would be. I'm like, 3 inches. So then 3 inches on each side, did the sewing. So it's at the end of the tunic. Look, a little sexy little, it's actually not really sexy. It's just for when I'm fighting other Vikings and I kick and I don't tear my tunic. I mean, either way. And then once that all got together, then there were a few more details that needed to be done to make it more like the actual costume. And another was, there were some extra sleeves. Now, I say extra sleeves, but I'm pretty sure like in the game, they meant for it to be like an under tunic and that had long sleeves. But in my case, since I'm wearing multiple layers and I know I'm going to sweat and be miserable, I'm trying to make it as less miserable as possible. And so what I did is Okay, looking at the reference photos, that looks kind of like a flannel maybe, or something similar. Then we looked online to find what we could to replicate that. And it was not the easiest finding just material to make my own sleeves. So we actually went and found some thermals. Now the cool part is, nabbed myself a couple Superman for thermals. Then what I did is I stuck these suckers underneath my tunic, sleeves through sleeves, so that I can measure how long, where I needed them, cut the sleeves off. And then actually, some other of this is used in another part of my costume, so I'm utilizing it more and more, but saved me some sweat and some time for sure, and I just cut the sleeves off of there to use for these here. And then what I did, and again, I was proud of myself because I thought about it, and I'm like, how am I going to get these sleeves on? How am I going to sew them on without any issues and so on? Flip it inside out, put these sleeves on here, get them sewed on, and I just sewed them underneath the hem of the light blue. So then when it's folded under, ta-da, has the long sleeves. And it was super effective, you can't even tell. Now I told my secret. And then the last detail, which I'm super proud of all this stuff. You do cute cosplay, you be proud of your stuff, because no matter how much hard work you put into it, it's work. Be proud of it. So the last details, the Celtic knots. Now, I know I talked about how there was a lot of swearing about Celtic knots on my helmet, and it was similar to this as well, but this one was a little bit easier. And the way that this was done is in Blender, the same program that was used to create the actual helmets. My husband, because he's the one that uses Blender, created these templates of the Celtic knots, and they go together. There's like 5 altogether, and they are repeating, but there's 5 so that we had enough length. And basically put them together. I printed them out and then cut them out. And then what I did is I pinned them onto my tunic. And then, not that it had to be a blue Sharpie, but since I was going to be painting it blue, I thought, hey, let's start the process. So I used just a regular old blue Sharpie and drew along the edges to get the pattern on there. And this was quite fiddly. And I'm like here with a little paintbrush. But basically, I took my 2 blue, which I used on the helmet, and then I also took this blue cotton, and there's also a turquoise that I have hiding somewhere, or I might have used it all. And I basically, my handy dandy little paint palette that my bestie Array gave me, used it, mixed up the color to get it as close as possible to the reference photos, so that when I put it on here, you know, it looked like it was supposed to be here. And then, tiny little brush within the lines, painted on the detail. And we joke about the 5-foot rule, or I guess 6-foot rule with COVID, that, you know, up close you can kind of see the errors, but if you're 5-6 feet away, you can't really tell. So, but I'm super proud of how we figured out to do it. So it's on the front and the back, and then on the sleeves as well. This one was a little more pain in the rear trying to get it around, but still, we got it in there. And then, so overall, the tunic, ta-da! If I could put it up here right for you, that might be good. There they are. Something for me to be proud of, because again, I'm not a huge sewer. So when I do successfully sew something, I'm like, I did it. That is that, folks. It's the tunic. I know there wasn't a ton to cover. It was mainly, you know, patterning. The cold is getting to my brain. We'll use that as an excuse. Can't be age or anything like that. And details and little shortcuts. The sleeves. Like here are sleeves ready to go on the next tunic. And they've been cut off of a second thermal. So when you can shortcut. It'll save you time, save you money, save you sweat. Cosplay, there's lots of sweat involved. So next, what's next on the agenda? I was thinking to do the vest, the leather vest, but that's going to be pretty extensive because it's a lot of detail. So I think what we might do is combine a couple and do the chest harness that I created, as well as the belt with the Celtic design on it. We'll do that in the next tutorial. Again, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends all about me, about this big nerd, and you know, I might be making cool things. I don't know. And comment, ask questions, give me suggestions. I'm up for it. Stay safe and stay away from people unless you have to.